I never expected a Tuesday afternoon to feel like the start of something I'd remember for the rest of my life. The air smelled faintly of gasoline and rain-soaked asphalt, a strangely comforting mix, and there she was, leaning over her car with that look that made it clear she was both frustrated and secretly amused at herself. "Don't even look at it," she said without looking at me, her voice sharp but soft, like she was scolding herself more than me. Her hands were smudged with grease, and a strand of hair had escaped her bun, falling across her forehead. I wanted instinctively to tuck it back, but I didn't. I just stood there, feeling like an intruder in a private little storm. Maybe I can help," I said, fumbling for words because I didn't want to seem too eager, too young. I could feel the awkwardness of the age gap pressing down in the space between us, and yet something about the quiet in her posture invited me in. She glanced up finally, and for a moment, it was like the world had narrowed down to those eyes, tired, warm, yet curious, flickering with a spark I couldn't name. "You?" she asked, a faint smirk tugging at her lips. "You make everything work somehow." Her words weren't a question. They hung in the air, teasing, impossible to respond to. I knelt beside her car, popping the hood, and tried to act casual, pretending I knew what I was doing. But really, all I could think about was the way her fingers brushed mine when she handed me a wrench, just for a second, just enough to leave an echo on my skin. We worked in silence for a while. The kind of silence that doesn't feel empty, it feels full, almost too heavy with things left unspoken. Every once in a while, I'd catch her watching me, like she was trying to figure out if I belonged there, if I was worth noticing. I felt my pulse thrum in my chest, my hand steady on the car, but my mind spiraling through every possible what-if. She sighed, leaning back against the car, wiping her hands on a rag. "You really do make everything work," she murmured again, and this time, she let her eyes linger on me longer than necessary. The sun had started to slip behind the clouds, streaking the garage in gold and gray. I wanted to tell her I'd fix more than just her car if she let me, but the words stuck, tangled in the tension between us. Her laugh, low and almost shy, startled me. It didn't match the confident woman I'd imagined from afar. It was softer, human, and it pulled at something I didn't even know I had. She shifted, her shoulder brushing mine. I could feel the warmth radiating from her, a quiet insistence that made it impossible to step back, impossible to pretend this moment wasn't charged with something more than engine trouble and spilled oil. I glanced at her again, just as she looked at me, and I swear the world held its breath. And then, just as I felt myself leaning closer, the kind of closer that changes everything, the shrill ring of her phone cut through the moment. She startled, reaching for it, but the look she shot me wasn't panic. It was curiosity, question, maybe even a little warning. I froze, heart hammering, and, for a second, everything seemed suspended. The air between us felt like it had been rewired, charged with unspoken promises and the thrill of danger, the kind that comes when two people shouldn't, and yet might, find themselves in the middle of something impossible. And just like that, the doorbell rang. The doorbell still echoed in my ears when she finally answered the phone. I lingered near the car, pretending to check the engine, but I couldn't stop listening to her side of the conversation. Her voice was calm, polite, businesslike, even, but beneath it, I caught a tremor I hadn't noticed before. Vulnerability. I'd always thought I knew a lot about people. But her? She was a puzzle I wasn't sure I had the right to solve. She hung up and turned to me, brushing a strand of hair from her face, eyes sharper now, guarded. "It's nothing," she said, but I didn't believe her. There was a weight behind her words, a history I wasn't meant to see, yet somehow already knew I was curious about. She leaned against the hood, watching me with that inscrutable gaze. I wanted to ask about her life, her past loves, the things that made her laugh or hurt. But I held back. It felt wrong, almost too intimate to pry. I settled for small questions, soft ones like, "Do you want me to test it?" as I wiped my hands. Her laugh came again, but this time it was quieter, more private. "You're too eager," she teased. And maybe she was right. Maybe I was too young, too reckless to be near someone like her. But there was something magnetic in the way she looked at me, a faint acknowledgement that I mattered, even if it was fleeting. I thought about my own life while I watched her. 23, fumbling through college, unsure if anyone saw me as more than just a boy. I've been used to looking up to people older, wiser. But now, standing here, watching her hands move over the engine, the lines around her eyes lit with sunlight and fatigue, I realized I wanted to be seen. Truly seen. And I wondered if she wanted that too. She was divorced, or at least that's what I'd pieced together from the careful way she avoided talking about relationships. And maybe that's why the age gap, the difference in our lives, made everything dangerous. I could almost feel the pulse of it. Every glance, every touch, a tiny rebellion against logic. A memory flitted through my mind. Her smiling at a dog she'd rescued from the street last month, telling me about how she sometimes stayed up at night just to read in peace. Ordinary human moments. Moments that somehow made her even more impossible to ignore. I found myself leaning a little closer, not thinking, just feeling. My hand brushed hers as I passed her socket wrench, and neither of us pulled away. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Enough to make the air between us feel electric, to make me aware of how sharp the edges of longing could be. She looked at me then, for longer than I expected, and I thought I saw something behind her calm. A recognition, a permission. And in that glance, that tiny brush of hands, that small shared laugh about the car's quirks, I felt a connection forming, a delicate, fragile bridge between two people who shouldn't, and yet might, be walking toward each other. And I realized, before either of us said it, that nothing would ever feel quite the same again. I shouldn't have stayed so long. I knew at the moment I heard the faint sound of keys rattling in her driveway. My chest tightened, not with fear exactly, but with that slow, twisting awareness that everything could change in a heartbeat. She stiffened too, a subtle shift in her posture I could almost miss if I weren't paying attention. "He's back early," she murmured, more to herself than to me, and I felt my stomach sink. Her ex, her past life, hovering over us like a storm cloud. I wanted to step back, wanted to pretend I was just the neighbor helping with a broken car. But my hands wouldn't stop brushing against hers, small touches that felt heavier than they should. We were quiet, but the tension hummed between us, thick and dangerous. I could see the guilt flicker in her eyes. She was thinking of him, of what staying close to me could mean. And me? I was thinking the same, thinking about crossing lines I'd never crossed before, lines that should have kept me in check. "I should go," I said finally, voice tight, though I wasn't sure if I meant it. She didn't move. Her hand lingered on the hood, just an inch away from mine. The space between us felt charged, unbearable, like we were holding our breaths underwater. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and sighed, a quick shake of her head. "It's nothing important," she said, but the words were hollow. She didn't want to admit she was afraid of being caught, afraid of wanting what she shouldn't. And yet, she didn't pull away when I stepped closer, just close enough to feel the warmth radiating from her body. My hand brushed hers again, this time lingering longer. I wanted to say something, anything, but the words stuck. Her gaze held mine, heavy with all the things neither of us dared speak. A sudden knock at the door startled us both. She jumped, and I cursed under my breath. Someone was here. I could feel my pulse hammering in my ears. Whoever it was, they didn't need to see this, see us hovering so close, hovering on the edge of something we weren't supposed to explore. Her ex's voice, calm and casual, floated in from the hallway. "I didn't expect to see you here." I froze. My hands, slick with grease from earlier, felt clumsy, useless. She didn't look at me, only straight ahead, jaw tight. I was just fixing the car," she said, voice controlled, but I could see the tremor in her hand as it rested near mine. I wanted to shrink back, wanted to vanish. But instead, my chest pushed forward, pulled by something I couldn't name: desire, curiosity, fear, maybe hope. The air between us was electric, a dangerous wire we were both dangerously close to touching. She inhaled sharply, and our eyes met again. It was silent, loaded, a pause heavy enough to break, yet neither of us moved. My fingers brushed hers once more, a whisper of contact, and I felt her hesitate, not pulling away, but not leaning in either. And for the first time, I realized maybe the very thing that could destroy us was also the thing pulling us closer than we'd ever been. The apartment felt smaller than it had before. I could hear my own heartbeat, loud and insistent, as if it were daring me to step closer or run away. She was standing by the counter, one hand gripping a mug of coffee, the other brushing her hair nervously behind her ear. Every movement was deliberate, contained, like she was holding back a storm. I wanted to reach for her, to tell her it was okay, but the words lodged in my throat. She had a life, a history I barely understood, and yet my chest ached every time she laughed or looked at me in that soft, impossible way. "You should go," she said finally, voice quiet but firm. Her eyes didn't leave mine, and I could see the tension coiled tight around her like a spring. "I can't," I admitted, my hands shoved into my pockets, trying to stop them from trembling. "Not yet." Her eyes flicked away for a moment, and I caught it. Something in her gaze that wasn't just hesitation. It was longing, fear, and maybe guilt, all swirling together. You're too young," she whispered, almost to herself. "This, whatever this is, it's not right." I swallowed hard. "I don't care about right or wrong," I said, but the words sounded desperate even to me. And maybe they were. I just know I can't stay away. Her hand trembled as she set the mug down. She turned fully toward me, shoulders squared, chin lifted, but her eyes betrayed her. "Do you even know what you're saying?" "You don't understand. I do." I cut in, stepping closer despite every warning ringing in my head. "I understand more than you think. I know it's complicated. I know the age difference. I know the risks. But I can't help how I feel." The tension between us was electric, almost unbearable. I could see the conflict etched into her features, desire warring with restraint, longing tangled with fear. My hands twitched, wanting to reach for her, to bridge the distance that had become unbearable. She shook her head, a soft laugh breaking through her nerves. "You make everything sound so simple," she said, voice low, teasing, but I could hear the quiver in it. "It's never simple." "I don't care about simple," I said, my voice dropping to a near whisper. "I care about us. Right now. This moment, before it disappears." Her eyes softened for a heartbeat, and I thought I saw the wall she'd built around herself crumble just a little. But then, almost immediately, she stepped back, as if the pull between us had become too dangerous. "You're reckless," she said, half laughing, half scolding. "And I can't let myself." Her sentence hung in the air, unfinished, and it was enough. Enough for me to know that everything had shifted, that nothing would ever be the same. I wanted to close the gap between us, to take the next step, to finally let what we'd been holding back spill over. But before I could, her phone buzzed again, slicing through the charged silence like a knife. Her gaze darted to it. My pulse spiked, and then the screen lit up. I froze as she picked up her phone, the screen illuminating her face in sharp relief. I wanted to look away, to pretend I hadn't been holding my breath for the last 10 minutes. But my eyes were glued to her, to the way her fingers trembled ever so slightly as she scrolled. And then I saw it, a message preview that made my stomach drop. Not from a friend, not a coworker, but from someone I hadn't expected to see, her ex. And the text wasn't casual. It said something that twisted the knife of reality. "We need to talk. Now. About last night." My throat went dry. My mind scrambled. Last night? Last night we'd barely spoken. Last night had been innocent. Or at least, I'd thought so. But clearly, There was something I didn't know. Something I had no right to know. She looked up at me, eyes wide, panic flickering for a fraction of a second before she masked it with calm. "It's nothing," she said, voice clipped, almost too sharp. But her hands shook, betraying her words. "Nothing?" I asked, my voice low, but edged with something I couldn't control. "That doesn't look like nothing." She swallowed hard, glancing down at the phone as if it were a living thing. "It's complicated," she admitted, almost whispering. And in that whisper, there was a crack in the armor she'd built around herself. The same armor I'd been falling helplessly for. Complicated, right? That word was supposed to make sense in my head, but it didn't. Not when every nerve in me was screaming that the woman in front of me wasn't just complicated. She was dangerous. Emotionally, morally, everything about her, and us, teetered on the edge of a cliff I wasn't sure I could climb back from. I started, trying to steady my shaking hands. "I don't know what you want from me. From us." My words sounded small even to me, but I couldn't find anything else. She stepped closer, and I felt that pull again, the same magnetic force that had been impossible to ignore from the start. "I don't know either," she admitted, voice breaking a little. I want me close to you, but I'm terrified, afraid of losing myself, afraid of hurting you, afraid of him finding out." The confession hung in the air, heavy and raw. I wanted to close the distance between us, to erase every second of doubt, but something in her posture told me this wasn't simple. This wasn't just about a stolen glance or a fleeting touch anymore. I swallowed and took a step forward anyway, hand twitching as if it knew the way my mind couldn't follow. "I don't care about him," I said, voice firmer than I felt. "I care about you. Right here, right now. We figure the rest out later." Her eyes searched mine, flickering between fear and longing. "You don't know what you're saying," she whispered. And maybe I didn't. Maybe I was reckless. Maybe I was blind. But then she did something that made my chest tighten. The smallest, most dangerous movement. She didn't step back. She didn't pull away. Her hand brushed mine, slower this time, deliberate, and I felt the weight of the choice she was almost daring herself to make. And just as I leaned closer, willing myself to cross the line, the sound of a knock at the door froze us both. The knock at the door had stopped my heart, but when she opened it, the world outside seemed to pause, and for a moment, it was just us again, two people who had walked dangerously close to something they couldn't name, yet couldn't ignore. Her ex was there, of course, but the confrontation didn't last long. He said what he had to say, tried to reclaim whatever he thought belonged to him, but I could see it in her eyes. She didn't belong to anyone but herself. And somehow, in that clarity, I felt a surge of hope. After he left, silence filled the apartment. Heavy, thick, but this time it wasn't tense. It was the kind of silence that meant everything unsaid had been understood. She sank onto the couch, and I sat beside her, careful not to rush, careful not to break the fragile space between us. "You're still young," she said softly, almost to herself. "You don't know how messy life can get." "I do now," I replied, voice steady despite the thrum of excitement and nerves in my chest. "And I want to be here anyway, messy or not." She looked at me, eyes searching mine for a long, quiet beat. I could see the weight she carried, the years, the scars, the fear of repeating old mistakes, but I also saw something else. Something lighter, something that mirrored my own heartbeat. Possibility. Her hand found mine again, and this time, neither of us flinched. We fit together in a way that made sense, despite the chaos of our worlds outside this room. I could feel the slow, steady pulse of trust building, fragile but undeniable. "I don't know if this will be easy," she whispered. "I don't know if it's right. I don't care about right," I said again, a little bolder this time. "I care about us. About now. About trying." Her lips curved into the faintest smile, and I felt a warmth spread through me, like sunlight breaking through clouds after a storm. It wasn't a promise of perfection. It was something better. Honesty. Presence. a willingness to step into uncertainty together. We didn't kiss yet. Not really. But the space between us was charged, trembling with all the things we couldn't yet say out loud. Every glance, every brush of fingers, every quiet laugh was a testament to the connection we had built, fragile and beautiful, like glass catching the light. And I realized then that love wasn't about certainty. It was about daring to stay, daring to feel, daring to risk everything for the chance to be seen and to see someone else, truly. We sat together for a while longer, our hands entwined, letting the quiet speak for us. Outside, the city moved on, indifferent, unaware. Inside, there was only this, a beginning. And I knew, with a certainty that made the rest of the world blur at the edges, that I would follow her anywhere, through every mess, every risk, every impossible moment. Because sometimes the right thing to do isn't about safety or reason. It's about choosing each other. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?